Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not.
All right, very excited to have my friend Kevin Clark from The Ringer on the Maybe I'm Crazy podcast. Kevin is obviously an amazing contributor to the business, but he also, if you don't know, is an excellent tweeter and is the owner. I guess you can call you can own a tweet, right? Like,
sure, creator, whatever
yeah,
you want to call it.
Sure.
I'm not selling them like Top Shots yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, oh my God, no. It's so amazing that people of all the things that are useless things I'm paying for, I draw the line at paying for someone's tweets. That is where I draw the line. I'm not a very principled person, but I will stand by that I'm not going to do that. But I would have paid for this tweet, which is where I want to start, which is in my opinion in the Twitter Hall of Fame. So I want to know what it's like to be the owner of one of the greatest tweets of all time, which is that the Seattle Seahawks have literally never played in a normal game.
So I was on your show a couple of months ago, and Colin brought me in, and he pumps me up, and he says, Kevin, you're known throughout this industry. And I'm getting all excited. Colin Cowherd, he's about to say something really nice about me. And he goes, you're known throughout this industry for this tweet. And I was like, oh, come on. Come on. Maybe a story, maybe a podcast. No, it's the tweet. No. So, it's funny because it's one of those things. And I'm just joking. I love Colin. But it was just a funny moment there. Because it's one of those things where it was a Seahawks Niners game. And I think it was an overtime. There was some missed kicks. And I was just like, this is not normal. The Seahawks have never done this before. And then it grew into its own thing. And to now, anytime the Seahawks are doing anything, it gets retweeted. I was able to ask DK Metcalf about it on Swell Newsday, our video show that we have a couple of weeks ago, and he knew all about it. And so I just think that it fed into this idea that the Seahawks are just totally comfortable with chaos and they like it. And every Seahawks fan is just like, they're so over it. And it's funny because they're going to miss it one day. Just the fact that they all play these, 21 to 20 games all the time and it's just chaos. But it's fun to see how that has grown over the past couple of years.
As you said, you lost control of it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Now it's just like it's being memed all the time. When they played that game against Arizona this year, the Kyler Murray game, the overtime one, it was getting memed out of control. And I was like, this is not my tweet anymore. It's like Terminator 2. It's become self-aware. I have nothing to do with it anymore.
Well, I wanted to start there. One, because it's one of my favorite tweets, but I think it's relevant to what the Seahawks are doing now because you mentioned my co-host, Colin Cowherd, who is from the Pacific Northwest and is a Seahawks fan. And loves Russell Wilson. I too am a Russell Wilson fan. And I like the Seahawks brands and Pete Carroll, and they're fun and always relevant. But I think what's going on with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks is anarchy. It's insanity to me. I don't understand it. Russell Wilson has been the epitome of a company guy from the moment he set foot in the NFL. I mean, I met him at the Super Bowl and I was like, he's like Jesus. Like he's so like, he had on this like sweatsuit. He just looks like someone who could like wear an all white sweatsuit and like not get anything on it all day. Like he's just, you know how it is. He just has this air about him. He's just excellence. And the Seahawks are acting as if he is like this chaos maker. And they're actually having a conversation about trading him. And I don't understand.
It's surprising to me. And I've talked to a bunch of people about this, it's so easy for this to have been put to bed, right? Like even the Texans are pretending to have put the Deshaun Watson thing to bed, right? Like they keep having these press conferences where like Deshaun's our guy, whatever, and Deshaun's not having it. Obviously, that's a separate discussion. But the Seahawks haven't even done that. Like they seem to just keep stoking the fire a little bit. And okay, there are certain things where they're over this or they're over that. I don't care. Every team who has a franchise quarterback puts up with certain things. Well, it doesn't matter what it is, whether that's Tom Brady or whether that's Deshaun Watson or whether that's Russell Wilson or whether it's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, people are human. And so you're not going to have 100% approval rating of everything you do. And the point of running a successful franchise is to figure everything out. And the fact that they see Russell Wilson being unhappy or whatever with management or whatever it is, the fact they see this is a huge obstacle is crazy to me. And beyond that, Joy, like, what's the problem with Russell Wilson having say in the front office, or Aaron Rodgers having say in the front office, or Deshaun Watson having say in the front office. Because for me, the needs and the desires of Russell Wilson would dovetail with the Seahawks. Offensive linemen. Okay, well, is there a reason you shouldn't have good offensive linemen? Is there a reason you shouldn't get more skilled guys? I mean, you should at least have these conversations. It's not like he's trying to sign his friends or whatever. Like I remember when Dwight Howard was going to be a free agent with the Magic, and they were like signing his friends and stuff to try to get him to stay. Or the thing was going to be they were going to trade for Josh Smith because they'd played AAU ball together. It's like, no, Russell's not asking for that. He's asking to be protected up front, and he's asking for more say. Russell Wilson's a smart guy, and if he wants to be in the draft room just hanging out, or he wants to be on free agency calls, let him. That's it. I mean, you can't. This whole idea about the player empowerment era or whatever, and there's this whole debate, should players have whatever? Yes, they should, if the alternative is you not making good decisions, or in the Deshaun Watson's case, you're giving the power to Jack Easterby. Okay, like you can't argue against the player empowerment era if you're giving the power to just someone who doesn't need the power. This is not about Bill Belichick versus a franchise quarterback. It's Jack Easterby, or it's Pete Carroll, it's John Schneider against a quarterback. Obviously, Pete Carroll and John Schneider are significantly more better football minds. But I'm just saying, if you don't intend to make the team better, that's on you.
Right. And I totally agree with everything that you're saying. And you're absolutely right. But also, when you allow these stories to be out there that
Yes.
or just even allow us to think that there's a thought being
just
entertained.
Put it to bed.
Yeah, there was a story yesterday that watch out for Sam Darnold. I'm like, right. Okay, no disrespect to Sam Darnold, but you have Russell Wilson, who's a future Hall of Famer, on your team. And to your point, all he's asking for is a better offensive line. Yep. Gosh, I mean, he's only on pace to be sacked more than any quarterback in the history of the league. I feel like that's fair. It's available, right?
Yep.
But my thing is, I think that the pushback from, and this ties into Deshaun Watson as well, that you bring that up, is this idea that players have too much say, or they want to be involved in things and they're not qualified to be involved in things. And it's it just doesn't matter anymore. Players make so much money outside of their contracts. And we're not just talking about any players. We're talking about franchise quarterbacks who Dak Prescott made $50 million in endorsements last year. Football is a vehicle and a business, and they want to be involved in making their business better, just like you are. And to your point, if they're asking for crazy nonsense, sure, but an offensive line is reasonable. So then that leads me to Deshaun Watson, because the conversation around him has sort of died down a little bit in what has been a really crazy offseason for the NFL. I personally feel like we have to do everything we can to protect Deshaun Watson and get him the hell out of Houston.
Yes.
But Houston seems to be content in making this very ugly. Do you think it's going to get worse?
I think it comes down to, and there's some people who think maybe it gets resolved by the draft because it's just easier. If you know it's a divorce, if you know you cannot proceed, it makes all the sense in the world to trade him before the draft, because that's when you know you can get the third pick if it's Miami, or maybe you talk him into the Jets at 2, or maybe there's a 3-team trade or whatever it is, but you have certainty and you're not rolling the dice into next year or whatever it is. Okay. I think it's going to come down, personally, just reading the situation, I think it's going to come down to the willingness for Deshaun Watson to sit out games, to sit out maybe regular season games, or maybe it's just training camp. And also, by the way, I think a big part of this, how normal is this offseason? Does he skip OTAs? Is there a full training camp for him even to skip? I think things will be kind of back to normal by July, but we'll kind of see how that goes. I think eventually they're going to trade him, because I don't think he's going to suit up for the Houston Texans again. But I do think that they're going to make this a painful process for him. They just signed Tyrod Taylor for $12 million. I don't know if you do that unless you're extremely worried about your quarterback position. I think Tyrod Taylor is a good player. But I also just think that there's a sense of reality setting in, which is that Deshaun Watson is never going to be all in on the Houston Texans. He was amazing last year. There's an argument to be made. I saw it on Pro Football Focus. He had one of the best seasons last year of any quarterback in the last 15 years when you talk about supporting cast and all that stuff, and skill guys and protection. And he was all in when he was on the field. I just think they understand, with the new coach, with the new GM, with apparently they're just trying to build around Jack Easterby. I think that they understand that it's probably time to try to get some value for him.
So the Patriots made it rain over the past couple of days. And I mean, not they did and they didn't. I don't like to get into the nuances of how much guaranteed money is actually in all these contracts, but they made it look like they were being, at the very least, they were being aggressive. I think that this is actually kind of predictable if you have any kind of respect for Bill Belichick, because there was no way he was just going to sit back and just continue to take L's, especially after Tom Brady just went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl. But are we being fooled by the amount of moves? Like, what do you think of what the Patriots have done?
Well, Bill Belichick's showing us. The great thing about free agency, Joy, is teams tell you what they think about the players in the league and all that stuff. And Bill Belichick hated the 2020 Patriots. He hated them. He never wants to see that team again. Okay. And so he's doing the best. So Adam Schefter had a number that they spent the second most money in history, behind only the Dolphins last year. The Jets spent $231 million over 2 off seasons a couple of years ago. That was the most over 2 years, but over 1 year, it's the Dolphins and now it's the Patriots. And I'm not surprised they're doing it, because I think that this is the only way they can compete in 2021. If Bill Belichick was going to tank, he would have done it last year. He doesn't want to tank. He doesn't want to go 7-9, but he definitely doesn't want to go 3-13. And so what he's doing now is the only thing to kind of patch up that roster, overpaying for Nelson Aguilar or whatever it is. I was surprised by that move, because normally Nelson Aguilar is the type of guy Belichick would sign for the minimum, and then he would go to a Las Vegas for $26 million, right? Now it's the opposite. He goes to Las Vegas on a minimum deal, and now Belichick's paying him $26 million. That never happens. He's always the value shopper, not the overpayer. But I think that when you look at, okay, you can't get that many impact players in the draft. And as odd as it sounds, you're not going to get a Nelson Aguilar type contributor after the first round. It is when you're looking just at 2021, especially when you look at how bad Belichick is at drafting skill guys. And so what this is it's a little bit of desperation. It's the only thing he can do, which is go get veterans now. This is, in a weird way, an inefficiency, because he's the only guy with money. There's like 5 teams that have actual money to spend, and he's one of them. And so he's going to say, you know what, if I have to give $5 million more to Nelson Aguilar or to Kendrick Bourne or whomever it is, I'm just going to do it, because it's the only way in 2021 to compete.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the draft before I let you go, because we love pre-draft videos.
Yeah.
Colin and I love playing those and imagining that it's real life, and it's really just guys in their shorts throwing the football around. Yeah. But I hadn't seen a lot of Trey Lance, and he's a big kid. Yeah. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that we have all kinds of different quarterbacks now. But there's been a lot of talk about him over the past couple months. Obviously, he didn't play last year. But who is of these? Obviously, you have Trevor Lawrence, and we know he's going to be great. Who of the rest of these guys in the draft could you actually see being successful? Not just based off of their talent, what they've done in college, but where they will most likely land as well.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think that, one of the things, like Daniel Jeremiah said this on my podcast, I'm sure he said it to you as well. This is going to be a baseball draft. Like, this is going to be, we don't have that much information. We're going to go off the tools. Some of these, Trey Lance didn't play last year. Zach Wilson played a weird schedule. And I think that when there's limited information, you kind of have to guess on this kind of stuff. That's what he means by baseball drafts. But with Zach Wilson, more and more smart people are starting to talk themselves into him because of all the off-balance throws and all that stuff and the way he gets out of the pocket. And I'm wondering if he had opportunities to throw those off-balance passes. And people are saying, oh, he looks like Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre or Mahomes or whatever. And I think we're getting a little too far ahead of ourselves. And so Wilson, it sounds like it's going to go to the Jets at 2, which is just fascinating. I think Lawrence in Jacksonville is going to be really successful, because I know that you asked for somebody other than that, but I think the Urban Meyer thing is going to work. I think that someone's going to get Trey Lance in the top half of the first round and is going to be really successful with him. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Maybe it's in Atlanta with Arthur Smith. I could see that. I saw Mac Jones kind of mock to Atlanta at one point. Maybe Carolina tries to do that. I mean, you look at some of the innovative young coaches in this league, Joy, whether that's Matt Rule, whether that's Arthur Smith. I think there's real opportunities for them to get a guy in the top half of the first round and just start molding. And that's what I would look to. I don't think you want to play for the Jets right now. I have huge respect for Robert Saleh, but I just think that they're still a couple of years away, and we'll see about the skill guys. I think if you get into that sweet spot in the middle, people are talking about DJ Moore as the kind of guy who's always kind of who could use a better quarterback and has a lot of talent. I'm looking at a place like Carolina or Atlanta where they'll start building for the future now with one of those middle of the first round guys.
I would love to see him in Atlanta or Justin Fields. I think that they need to take a quarterback. I don't know. I guess I just can't see Atlanta taking a quarterback.
I think that they're going to have to move on. They can't move on from Matt Ryan this year, right?
Right.
The contract is way too big. But if you're Atlanta, to me was always fascinating because you're inheriting Julio Jones, you're inheriting Matt Ryan, you're inheriting a ton of huge contracts. And do you say, okay, we have those guys, let's try to build, even though you don't have the cap space, let's try to build and win now? Or do you say we're going to have to tear the whole thing down? And that was what was fascinating to me. And I would also say the same thing of Detroit, Joy, because they had Matthew Stafford and a similar type of thing where it's okay, we have some of these big ticket items, even though we've been bad the past couple of years. And they went with the trading Stafford almost immediately route. Matt Ryan's contract was different. They both obviously make a ton of money. But I think that we could be seeing the last year of Matt Ryan just because when you have a new regime and they don't have the ability to build a ton of pieces around them. We were talking about this the other day on the herd, but the NFC South right now goes through Tampa. And what are you doing right now? And this is how every owner views this. How are you as the Atlanta Falcons going to get past a Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now with Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Chris Godwin, all those guys in the fold? I don't see it. And so if you're doing a short-term build, that's not going to work. So you might as well start a long-term build and compete with Carolina as far as I'm not trying to win in 2021. I'm trying to win in 2023 when hopefully for their sake, Tom Brady finally retires, although we know he's going to go for another decade.
Yeah, I got out of the when Tom Brady is going to retire business a long time ago. And it was a good career. It was a good career move by me. That I got out of that, and after the Atlanta Super Bowl, I just submitted that I'm just going to enjoy watching Tom Brady, and just start. I mean, because he's made me suffer. I'm a Steelers fan and a Dolphins fan, so I've had nothing but suffering from Tom Brady. It's still wild to like hear you say like going to the Tom Brady Buccaneers, like that's the thing, and they're bringing everybody back.
Yeah, I mean, and Tom Brady's still really good, and it's unbelievable. I mean, there was a case to be made. I saw some of the analytics guys say it may have been Tom Brady's second best season ever, and he's 43 years old, and he wants to play till he's 46, and that's why it's so funny to me. Matt Ryan, his contract goes through 2023. He's 36 years old, and it's funny to me because I start to think, well, is Matt Ryan getting old, or is Tom Brady the new normal? Because guys like Tom Brady, or even I put Drew Brees in this discussion, who aged so well, I don't know if I should expect that from Matthew Stafford and Matt Ryan and this whole generation of guys. And I also just don't know at 43 years old how long Tom Brady can go for. So Brady in particular, he's talked about playing till 46, and a lot of that's based on the fact that his throwing coach was Tom House, who was a baseball guy who was the pitching coach for Nolan Ryan. And the mechanics of baseball and football are apparently similar. And Nolan Ryan could throw that fastball till he was 46. And so a lot of it's based on that. But at this point, I mean, until Tom Brady is sitting at home on week 1 of an NFL season, I'm going to assume he can still do it.
I'm 100% with you. It's an exercise of futility not to. I don't understand why anyone suffers through it anymore. Thank you so much for coming on with us. I really appreciate it.
It's great.
Follow Kevin by Kevin Clark. Check out Slow News Day, which is excellent, and all of his other work on The Ringer. I appreciate it. I know you're super busy, but we appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for having me, Joy. Anytime.